We have to learn, or actually be trained out of having a desire for more and for what we want. It's part of the human nature, and that's the truth, and that's just the way it is. I was speaking to a friend of mine recently, another pastor, and he was saying to me that he believes that people are trained to be generous. And I said, well, in that I'd agree, and yet I would add this, basically. People already are generous to themselves. What they need to be taught is to be generous to others. And that comes through a relationship with God. But we already have this great desire to satisfy ourselves, and that's the absolute truth. We just passed through Christmas. Did you get everything you wanted? No. Probably not. You know, my grandson Josiah, I had mentioned to you that we have Christmas Eve, and we open up a present on Christmas Eve, and he got to choose whatever present he wanted to open, and he opened up his present, and it was clothes. Now, this is a 4-year-old, and he looks at it, and he throws the clothes on the ground, and he just puts his face in the couch, and he says, I wanted a toy. I mean, that's in his heart now. You're not satisfied with what you get, even though underneath the tree there were so many other presents for him, and that's just at one house. He's got other grandparents and great-grandparents and uncles and aunts, and we have to rent a U-Haul to bring home the stuff that this kid takes in. But the bottom line is he wanted more. That's human nature. That's the way it is. They get that from their mothers. I know that's a fact. That's just the way it is. We have this desire for more and more, and we have to actually learn, we have to be trained out of that. We have to learn the lesson of Christ, who says it is more blessed to give than to receive. But we have to learn these things. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, Paul said, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. A greedy heart is a heart that is not trusting in the Lord to provide. What God gives is just never enough. James in chapter 4, verse 2 says, you lust and do not have, you murder and covet, and you cannot obtain. A greedy heart is never satisfied and is not satisfied in trusting the Lord to provide. And so as Jesus is speaking here, he's making it very clear that a man's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. A man is more than the sum total of his material wealth. And I know that runs contrary to common practice and common wisdom today. I know that. It always has, really, but I see that today because image is everything. Image is everything. We have a tendency of buying into the things that make us look better. Cars, pretty much the same. They all have to pass certain regulations to be on the road. But we have choices that we make with those cars based on the image that it projects when we drive it. There's no doubt about that. And people go to school to learn how to manipulate our greedy desires and our materialism in order to get most out of us that they can. We all know that. That's not something you don't know already. It's simply true. And we can all fall prey to that kind of thing. The image, wanting to look in a certain way, be a certain way, drive a certain thing, and eat a certain rest, all of that is part of what we deal with on a daily basis. And when we have this mentality that my life consists or is made up of the things that I own, then we've lost ourselves in the truest sense of the word, because we don't have an idea or a clue what life really is and what it's really supposed to be. And that's what Jesus speaks about here. And so he gives this parable. Notice verse 16. He spoke a parable to them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I'll do this. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will store all my crops and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you have provided? So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. And so notice this farmer is a man who's been blessed by God. He just doesn't acknowledge it. He has a portion of land that is productive. It receives abundant rain, abundant sun. and he has disease-free crops. In this parable, that all represents God's gracious provisions for him. He's so blessed that he begins to think about how he can provide for his future. I want you to notice in verses 17 and 18 how he speaks to himself. He speaks of my crops, my barns, my goods, and even my soul. Jesus is emphasizing the fact that none of these truly belong to him, including his soul. In the Old Testament book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 18, God, when he was speaking to the children of Israel, was warning them concerning the fact that he would bless them, but how they might respond to his blessings. And so in Deuteronomy 8, verse 18, he said, "You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day." You need to remember it's God who gives you the ability to do the things that you do. Not a single person in this room is really a self-made person, because all of the attributes and the drive and the variety of things that you have, you've received from someplace else. You know, what does a man have that he hasn't been given? Everything that we have, our talents and abilities, come from some other place. And the Bible tells us that it's God who is the one who gives us the ability, because God is the one who blesses us. In James chapter 1, verse 17, James said, "Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows." Every good and every perfect gift cometh down from above. So God is the one who gives to us these benefits and blessings and all. So when this guy is saying, "These are my things," you know, my crops and my barns, my goods, and even my soul, the Lord has a disagreement with them. So when he says in verse 19, "I'll say to my soul, you have many goods laid up for many years," he's in essence simply saying to himself, take a break. You deserve it. Look at all you've accomplished over the years. Now the problem is he's living as if there's no eternity. He's living as if there's no God. The Bible in Psalm 14 verse 1 says, "The fool says in his heart, there's no God." And that's how he's living. In Job, in chapter 12, verses 9 and 10, it reads, "Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this, in whose hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind?" God is in control of all things. And this man has basically removed God from the equation. Now, I don't know if it's my age or what, but I notice there are a lot of commercials on TV that advertise the wise investments for your future. And you've seen the commercials, perhaps, if you watch TV at all. Usually there's an older couple and they're driving a nice car, or they're taking a leisurely walk on the beach, or they're sitting at a nice restaurant or a cafe and they're drinking some coffee and just enjoying each other. And obviously that's the picture of the American dream. The American dream consisting of financial stability as well as prosperity. And so that's a message that many people who are growing older, that's a message that we have heard, and many of us desire to be true in our own life. Now, obviously, the question can be asked, well, is there something wrong with making plans for the future and making wise investments? And the answer to that is no. It's actually wise to be aware of that. It's even responsible, I think, to prepare for the future. The Bible in Proverbs 13, verse 22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children." And I want to be a good man, and I want to leave something behind for my children. And I want to leave something behind for my children's children. And so I have insurance, and I have a little financial plan that I'm trying to put money away in and all, so that should the day come when the Lord takes me home, I'm not going to leave Marie without anything. You know, my guy that I use for my investments told Marie, "Your husband's worth a lot more dead than alive." And that's the truth. And I have no problem with that at all, because I want to leave behind something for my wife to make sure that she's okay. And I encourage you in the same way.